Hey everyone, welcome to Money, Sex, and God. I am so happy to be here live in the flesh, in person, with another New York badass doing incredible sexual empowerment work and brilliance all over Manhattan. So I'm super excited to have Cara Kovacs on for Money, Sex, and God. Cara, could you, as people are coming in, could you give us a little bit of who you are and who you seem to be?
Yeah, thank you so much for that beautiful intro and for being in my home and welcoming me and Addie, the corgi, who you may have seen. She might come back, I don't know. I'm sure you guys want to see her. She's really cute. she's my dog-ter. My name is Cara, as you said, and I am a sex, love, and relationship coach. So the bulk of my practice is coaching private clients through some kind of transformation. So when people come to me, it's really about what is it that you're looking to heal or to change? And people always ask me, like, what is the most common thing that you see? And there really isn't one. It can be everything from reigniting a long-term relationship to integrating a past trauma narrative or rewriting some negative dating patterns and self-limiting belief systems that you might have springing up in your love life. It could also be about feeling more empowered in your pleasure. So if you experience pain or numbness during sex, we can explore and work with that. So it's really a wide variety of reasons that I would see a client. Another thing that I do in the city that I really love doing is host and teach a lot of workshops. So I have, it's actually not a sex related one, but it's my monthly lunar club. It's called Moon Crew. The full moon is happening this Sunday, so we'll be having Moon Crew next Tuesday. And we do it, it's great. It's a really awesome, beautiful collection of magical beings because a lot of intuitives and healers tend to come. But Moon Crew is for everybody. We have an in-house astrologer. She gives us a lunar forecast. We meditate. We do some kind of like astrology-inspired activity. And it's actually based on the format of my mom's Reiki circles that we did in my living room growing up. So it's a really special thing that I love bringing to New York. It's not sex-related, but it's the only one that I do every single month without fail. And then I teach things like female sexual sovereignty. I have a Q&A next Thursday in Brooklyn called Congratulations, You're Normal. A sex coach Q&A. I did the panel with Michael, who I know you had on here. So lots of fun offerings that I release a newsletter with whatever's going on every month. So lots of ways to play.
Amazing. God, I mean, what a badass, right? Like the work that you're putting out there is so like just out of the gates. Like, and I know you feel similarly to me of like, the reason that we're going so fast is because the world deeply needs this work, right?
Yeah.
It's too little too late. And for people to become fully self-empowered and sexually empowered in their body, it's like, I mean, you know what happens, right? But we're just, let's go.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow's too late. Like, let's go right now. Right? Like,
I love that.
If you're in the suffering, if you're in the pain, if you're in the shame, you don't have to wait anymore.
Yeah. I think one of the special things that I love bringing to my practice is a combination of old modalities like spiritual modalities, ancient modalities, yoni egg practice, which comes from the Taoist tradition 5,000 years ago, and then modern practicality. I have a degree in women's studies, theories, and politics of sexuality, and so really combining, like, and I went to grad school for social work, like what is modern psychotherapy saying with what are the things that my mom taught me. My mom attuned me as a Reiki master. And how can we merge? Because when you say it's too late, right? I think also essential reclamation. We're going back to these original essence practices that are so old. And so, yes, way too late. Yes, 2,000 years of living in a patriarchy. Yes, so much like indoctrinated and necessary pain to both confront and clear and heal and look at and move through. But some of the most effective tools we've had for like 5,000 years.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I love, we were talking about this before we came on live, like sometimes it's about just getting back to it's always just about getting back to the essence of who you actually are, right? And you were speaking about how everyone at their core is already perfect.
Yeah.
And we forget that because we're conditioned against that. We're conditioned against, you need more, you need this, you're not having good enough sex, like, I don't know, you're not this or that enough. And people get really stuck, right?
Yeah.
It shows up. How does that show up with the people that you see and in your experiences?
Yeah, to kind of simplify it in a sort of a crude way. But
hey, crude. We like crude.
But when people are like, how can I be better at giving oral sex? I'm like, look like you enjoy it more. Because I think that I like to talk about it in terms of stories, of like the story of that part of the body is gross, which is thousands of years of people naming it as such, naming it as sinful, calling it your privates, you have to cover it up, not calling it what it actually is, naming it as an alternative name, creating a culture of shame around it. I remember when I was in high school, a girl who I was friends with told me that she like immediately showered every time after she had sex, and for like the first 5 years that I had sex, that's what I did too, because I was like, yeah, that must be really gross. And it was a totally banal, like, I'm sure she didn't mean any kind of judgment by it, but that's what's so important about doing this work, is exploring the subtle nuances of how we pick things up that don't really belong to us. And then we show up in our sexual experiences not able to fully enjoy them, not able to be the full expression of our desire, of our body, of ourself, because we have all these stories of like, swallowing is gross. I'm like, is it though? Like, or like for men, right? Like, if I enjoy anal play, I must be really disgusting, or there must be something wrong with me. And it's like, I don't know, have you tried anal play? And so when we talk about original essence, it's this space where we are free from the conditioned opinions and stories and traumas that have prevented us from just seeing if something works for us from a place of personal empowerment, where we get to ask and set good boundaries, because we don't want anybody, doing anything to us that violates our boundaries. Consent is also very important here, but exploring why and where those boundaries come from, I think, is a really, really good space to start in this work.
And I love the thing about sex is that I feel like I'm seeing like an image of like just like a double-edged mechanism, right? Because on one hand, in order to have the sex that we want, we need to allow these stories to release so we can come back to our true self, right? Like, and we do it, you and I do it through different ways, but honestly it's the same thing. Like, we're all doing the same thing. And on the other hand, the more sex you have, the more the stories are released, right?
Yeah.
Because sex in itself, in its essence, is that. It's the opener. It's the deconditioning, right? When it's done in this conscious way with the awareness that you can bring in, right?
Yeah, and there's also so much that, like, sex can be very triggering for people who haven't explored entirely what it is that they're bringing into the experience. And sometimes, like myself included, you don't know until you get there.
Right.
And then it hits on something that is an opener, just like you said, of like, oh, like, why? I was telling you about an experience I had last week. This opener of like, like, where is this piece coming from? And like, what am I looking for here? And if I'm authentic in what I desire and like why I'm exploring, like the exploration in and of itself can be a revelation of a story and like an unlocking of a trauma narrative or an opening of an inquiry. And you may go through it and be like, never mind, I don't want any more of that. But I think another story is to do that and then feel shame and feel self-criticism of having done the exploration in the first place. And I think if we created more conducive narratives around empowering, like, you're divine, whole, perfect, complete as you are, you can still transform, you can still explore, you can go back to the way that you were, and all of those versions of you were exactly as you were meant to be, as long as you bring integrity and compassion and self-awareness to each of those situations.
Totally. Yeah. Boom. That's it. And just hearing you talk has me so much, like, there was like a light bulb going off of like kink, 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 right? Because it's that, like, my experience with kink was that there were places in my body that I couldn't fully unlock, right? Energetic systems in my body that I couldn't fully access until I consciously started to explore kink about 12 years ago, right? And that allowed my voice to come through, my anger to come through when I was topping, and then later my surrender to come through, my letting go, my ability to let spirit in and trust another human being, right? Like, it moved in through kink, and I know we can get there through tantra, but I'm curious, what I'm hearing is like, because of these dark edges, right? These dark edges that we can accept and bring in and play in, that there may be a real door for people, right?
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about, like, what has your experience been with that world?
Like, personally?
I love personal. We all like personal stories, but you share as much as you want.
Well, one thing I want to acknowledge is, you know, I have people come to me who they take a workshop and they come up afterwards and they are like so thrilled and so grateful, and they say things like, I've been in my 8-year relationship and we've only ever done missionary, and I'm going to go home tonight and I'm going to top him.
That's Kink.
And I'm like, yes, you are. You know,
Kinky
so,
motherfucker.
so, hi,
Hi, baby.
So there's like such a spectrum that we can talk about of, like, some people come in and for them, like, really fully embodying their sexual expression is to, like, have sex with the lights on and not do missionary. And I'm, like, celebrating the shit out of that. Mm-hmm. And then we have, like, all the way on the other end of the spectrum where we're talking about conscious play parties, and we start to trigger people who may be on different parts of the spectrum. And then we go a little bit deeper and we start talking about kink and certain kinds of maybe like role play or toys, and then people get even more. So there's this whole spectrum of, like, what is normal and acceptable to people. And the great thing I think we get to provide as coaches and teachers and guides in this world is, like, all of that's normal to me.
Right. It's all good. There's nothing you can tell me that's like, right?
So I think that's been a really beautiful experience of just being able to receive what people think is, like, so shameful and disgusting about them, and be like, amazing,
right.
Love that
so
for you.
Good.
Like,
Let's celebrate that. Yeah.
In my own journey, I think, like, there's been a lot of experimentation. Like, I was terrified of men. I have a pretty extensive trauma narrative with men. I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. My father is very mentally ill, and I experienced a lot of emotional abuse growing up, and my first relationship was with a woman at 18 because I really wanted to have sex, but I, like, couldn't talk to a guy. Like, could not. I mean, my entire mind would just go blank, and I have always been, like, very kind of, like, obsessive about my attraction to men, but, like, unable to communicate it. And so there has been this, like, exploration in my sexuality of my queerness that has always sort of tied in a little bit to my trauma narrative, and using, like, play parties and multi-partner sex to explore and understand and, like, exploring polyamory and, like, feel into, like, what actually is it that I'm desiring here was a really helpful way to get clarity. And, like, the conclusion that I've come to over time is, like, sometimes I'm kind of into women and sometimes I'm not. And, like, that's fine, right. You know? Like people...
You always know when someone is having, like, a good amount of sex in their life. When they give you an answer, like, whatever. Like, that's when you know, right? Like, you're like, oh, you're tapped into, like, the truth of everything, which is pretty much whatever, right?
Yeah. It's like, I sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not. And, like, and trying to judge it is, like, again, putting me in a story where I have to, like, qualify myself for somebody else. And so I want to celebrate authentic connection. And I think, like, a really beautiful thing spiritually that I've been playing with a lot. I saw this meme the other day, and it was, like, a counter, and, like, one side said twin flame obsession, and then the other side said, like, actual spiritual journey. And then the twin flame side had, like, a line, like, hundreds of people long, and there was, like, one person at the spiritual journey line. And this is something I think about a lot, which is, one, I believe you can manifest whatever you want.
Right.
Two, I think everybody you've ever been in love with is your soulmate.
Right.
When people come to me and they ask, is this person my soulmate? I'm like, probably because you're wondering if they are, you know, like, that dog is my soulmate. She definitely is. Like, as far as twin flames go, it's kind of like, I would love to manifest and say that I could meet a twin flame, and I also believe that that is possible if I desire to manifest it. And I'm open to that, like, not being my life path or my life journey, or getting, like, attached to this idea, or deciding when I'm with someone that they're my twin flame and then we, like, break up 10 years later and I, like, think I failed, you know? Like, I don't think relationships that end are failures. I think that they're growth cycles. And, like, I'm not here to judge or qualify any of my relationships beyond soulmate, because I don't think that it serves me. And like if the universe wants to hand me a twin flame connection on a silver platter, oh, you bet I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of it. But like I don't see how it serves people to like say I'm like looking for this other half to complete me either in my life or in my sexual narrative, because I don't think any one person could ever give me that. So I think like sexual exploration has allowed me to say like I'm not really attached to like somebody sweeping me up and like carrying me off into the sunset. I'm open to that. I think it would be great, but everything else gets to be enjoyable, and it's such a release and like a relief to say like I could be with you for 10 years, I could be with you for 20 years, I could be with you for 5 minutes, but I'm gonna love the shit out of you. I'm gonna let the shit out of you go and still love you, and like it's fine.
Right. That's, I mean, so I was telling you about my partner before the call, and I was in a similar space of, you know, we both teach sovereignty, right? So I was like, I'm good. Like if I'm alone, which you're never alone, but if I'm living alone and doing the 3D world alone for the rest of my life, I'm solid, right? I don't need another human in that interaction. Because, and like my sex with myself was so good, and like everything was so yummy and juicy, and this person who I told you about was waiting, right? Who knew that they wanted to be with me in the 3D realm, was waiting, came into my sphere, and basically the both of us are living in a very similar understanding that like there's no separateness, right, between any human, right? So to say like you are my partner was like, it's a funny thing for us because we're like, I don't know, you don't exist, I don't exist, there's nothing here, right? Like it's a game to play in. And so when we solidified that container in our relationship, it was like, well, do you want to play in this game? Like, do you want to play in the game of like walking around in the world that way? Like we don't have to, and like at any minute you can change it if you want, right? And it's like a full detachment from any future, right, thing. And if we want to go future, that's the game of that. It's like, let's play in the game of creating our future just for shits and giggles. Because and I think that comes from a place where we can dissolve the fear, right, enough, and understand that the universe ultimately is like a positive force. We're not positive, but it just isness, right? So there's nothing that we can really do to like F it up. Like we're not
that's
gonna,
what I think.
Right?
Like, you literally can't mess it up.
No. It's like pretty impossible. Like even if you become a drug addict and spend the next 25 years in jail, you did not mess that up. Because
it was a soul agreement. And I think and this is like where, and I think this is a really interesting point to touch on that isn't necessarily sexual. This is where it gets really hard and important to do the work of saying like I can both make the world a better place and allow people the space to be where they're at the same time. And I can like want better for someone and allow them to not be able to create that and not judge it and witness it and still try and like set a boundary and say like it's actually not healthy for me to try, and all of that is like a space that you play in. And it's really easy to think you're messing it up, but like you're just trying, you know?
I see that a lot with sex and pleasure too in my practice. I'm sure you see it too, where people are like, did I do my self-pleasure right? Like, did I, right? And I'm like, honey, like sex you get to fuck up the most out of everything. Like it gets to be literally your playground. To, like the experience that I've had sexually, like total fuck ups, right? And in that, what starts to happen is your nervous system starts to understand that like the thing you're so afraid of, you're okay, like you get through it, which was a big part of my trauma healing, and I think a big part of what helped in kink as well, and how bringing kink in, right? It's like, oh, this pain, sexualize it, whatever, right?
I mean, and I think that there's also like the things that are fuck ups are like they can be celebrated. The first time I ever went down on a woman, afterwards I got out of the bed and I tripped over my foot and fell into a wall of blinds, and all of the blinds fell down.
She's like in her space of like, oh, and then the next thing you know, like,
I was just like so embarrassed, but like it's funny. Like it's, let it be funny. Sex is funny.
It's hilarious.
I feel bad when I hear clients who are like, I'm scared to make noise, I'm gonna sound weird, and I'm like, maybe. Like, I'm like, who cares? Like, you know, turn the lights on. Like, does your face, would it look amazing in a photo right now? Like, is your hair okay? No. Like, that's okay. This is like a primal activity. This is an activity of the body. Bodies are weird. They make weird noises. They have dimples and rolls and zits and ingrown hairs and weird shit happens to them. And I think this is a big thing that I think I've come through in my journey with sexuality as well as, I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I wear a medical device. It's tiny. It's like a little sticker with a Bluetooth chip, and it measures my blood sugar and sends it to my phone. And one of the things that I really confronted when I started going to play parties was this feeling like I wanted to take it off and I didn't want to wear it to the play party, and that somehow like having this on my body at a play party would make like other people, like I didn't want to explain it to people, like were people going to be like grossed out by it, like would it make people not desirous of me? And I was like, ultimately the decision I made was a financial one because these shits are expensive. And so I was like, I'm not taking it off. I put it on 2 days ago. I'm like not gonna not have it. That was Addie. She was like, Mommy, wear your medical device to the sex party. You look great. Thank you. And I wore it, and it was so empowering. And I remember the first time I ever hooked up with somebody who wasn't like a long-term partner while having a medical device, and when I took my shirt off, it was on my stomach at the time. My dog is like making the weirdest noises.
She's having life right now.
Weird noise permission. I like had it on my stomach, and I took my shirt off, and I like put my hands over my stomach, and I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And the person I was hooking up with was like, are you okay? Like, what are you sorry about, And coming into this space of like, oh, I think this is weird. Like, nobody else thinks that this is weird. And if you can give that to your lovers, like, why can't you give that to yourself?
Right.
I'm going to just pick her up because she's being obnoxious.
Cool,
Come here.
perfect. That reminds me so much of like this, ultimately, people ask me a lot, like, what makes great sex, right? Like, what creates that realm? And to me, it's like when you forget that you're even there, right? Which means that the stories go away. You're just sensation-based. You're emoting. But the thought process of, like, does this look okay? And am I doing this right? And you just become, like, totally absorbed in that precious moment, which is all we have anyway, right? And then what I love to see is how that then, it's, again, that dual thing keeps coming up, but then that, it's like a yoga practice, right? So you take that out, and then every single moment, like this moment right now, can be just as good as the hottest sex we've ever had, right?
That's Tantra.
Right.
Yeah.
We can create, and it's Tantra, and it's life in itself.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's such joy, which is so beautiful. So that's people ask a lot, like, why do I want to have better sex? Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how would it feel for you if every waking minute of your day was spent in pleasure and bliss and like pure acceptance and love? Right? No matter what the fuck's going on.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to look at it. I also think that's what's great about like our line of work is that there are so many teachers who can bring you to new spaces. Come here, Potato.
Potato. Can you call me Potato?
You can be Sweet Potato. She's a regular potato. She's a baked potato. Poor Addie. She doesn't know the divine bliss of sexual pleasure.
She hasn't gotten it. She's a dog.
She has a cat terrier boyfriend and a golden retriever boyfriend, though. She has 2 boyfriends.
She's like, don't talk about my personal life on Facebook. I didn't consent to this.
She's just like so happy to be included on the show.
She really is. This is gonna get the most views out of everything. That dog. Watch here for Corky.
I know. I always tell her she was like one of the best branding decisions.
Totally. Ideal. Oh my God. So good. You're gonna bring us a bone. Thank you. So what were you just saying that was really golden before?
I have no idea.
Okay.
What was I saying that was really golden before?
You started with something with our line of work and why it's so
it's like just really beautiful to have so many different practitioners who can bring people to so many different spaces.
Yeah.
Like your idea of like being in pleasure in every moment, like I'm a Virgo, right?
Yeah.
I'm like in neuroses in every moment. So I'm like, that's so beautiful. Like I actually don't teach people that, and that's what's like when
you
we
do empowerment more.
or like you're normal, you're divine,
right.
you're whole, you're perfect, you're complete, and you can change. And like combining ancient and modern, I think is really my niche too, because I love bringing what the work of my family like into my practice. But one of the things we talked about like before we ever met was that like we're not in competition. There are so many people who need this work, and
like
that,
ASAP, like tomorrow.
The point is to find the person who resonates for you.
Right.
And I love that, and I love being in a universe where I get to meet so many awesome teachers doing this incredible work and have these conversations and bring it to more people. Like such a special place to play.
Yeah, it's just, it makes me so, like, I get so excited when I see other erotic coaches, like, kicking ass. Like, it's just, I really believe that, like, the suffering of the entire world can be cleaned out and cleared up if we can all awaken to this erotic energy, right? And this presence of eroticism. And I'm like, oh, please, I can't do it all. Like, this little body can't hold that mechanism, right? And it's just to have the masses was so yummy. And the more and more people that get to jump in and experience that in whatever flavor works for their nervous system is, like, fucking awesome. It's so ideal. So,
yes.
So good. So tell us, like, what you've got going on and where to find you, and we'll post right after this all the other things.
Yeah, beautiful. So I mostly teach on Instagram. I know you're more of a Facebook girl.
Yeah.
But you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is my name, Cara Kovacs, which is tagged in the description with an underscore after it. And my website is my name, carakovacs.com. And on my website or on my Instagram, I have an events page. In my Instagram bio, it's like a link tree. You can click it, and it's tickets to all upcoming events. Excuse me. So this month we have Moon Cruise next Tuesday for full moon in Aries. The theme is igniting your inner fire. And then next Thursday I'm teaching Congratulations You're Normal, a sex coach Q&A in Greenpoint. And then the only other workshop I'm doing this month is actually another not sex themed one. So I know how to read oracle cards in the style that my mother taught me. So when I talk about my work, I'm a third generation practitioner of spiritual arts. My grandpa was an acupuncturist and an herbalist. My mom is an intuitive, a psychic intuitive, and a Reiki master teacher. And my grandma, as I was telling you, was a professional dominatrix and erotica writer. So that's why I'm like, my family lineage is so deeply entrenched in the practices that I do. But I'm taking my mom's original notes, which I had to edit because they were not written to be understood by younger people. I'm like, she's gonna watch this and she's gonna be like, she like sent me all of her original notes for how to read her oracle deck, and she put like a dash between each note, so it's like the number of the cards and the description with just like a hyphen. And I'm like, you should like do enter and have them each on their own line. And she was like, that would make the document so long. And I was like, yeah, but this is very confusing to look at. And so she's like, I edited it, and she's like, what I did was I just put a lot of I put more hyphens between each of the things so that it was like more separated. And I'm like, I can't. So it's her original notes, but like I'm making it into a long document and deleting all the hyphens. That's something I have to do next week.
That's amazing.
But it's a 2-day workshop called How to Read Oracle Cards. And you'll leave knowing how to read the deck that she passed down to me. And it's not tarot. It's an easier deck to read than tarot. Like if you want to come in a 2-day workshop and leave and be able to read cards, cool. You'll be able to read. And it's super accurate. She teaches it once a month in my hometown, and people leave and they can read. And so I wanted to take her notes and offer that as something fun. It's like Halloween week, like a fun thing to do for Halloween week. And I don't know what I'm doing in November yet, but stay in touch.
Yeah, you guys go follow her on Insta. Her Instagram's amazing. And if you see her in New York, just go give her a big hug and squeeze and all that good
Ask
stuff.
for consent first.
Ask for consent and then give her a hug and squeeze. Thank you for taking yourself. And thank you for being on the show. Everyone's talking about wonderfulness and how wonderful, everyone's saying wonderful. So we're good. And those of you watching the replay, tag us and we can answer questions that pop up. I will make sure to have all of her links in here so you can follow her. And thank you guys for watching, and let us know what you got out of this, how your body's feeling, how your nervous system's doing in this moment from that conversation and what it brought up for you. We really want to know to serve you the best we can. So, yay, thank you. And thank you guys. Mwah.
Addie says bye.
Bye. Aww.